Welcome back to another 52 licks for 2020. We dealt with some Tony Williams using a Paradiddle-Diddle phrase last time. This time we're gonna kind of keep with that paradiddle family, and we're gonna pick a Brian Blade lick actually that uses a lot of paradiddles, at least early on, and uses that paradiddle sticking to introduce kind of a cool little way to get some stick-on-stick action in. So the lick, very simply, goes like this. So the lick is 3 paradiddles followed by a couple of stick-on-sticks, and then basically a hand-to-foot combination goes back and forth from floor tom to stick-on-stick. Starts on 1, ends on 4, ends on 1. It's basically a 4-bar phrase, and it goes like this. Very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Here are a couple accents in there. Do it a hair faster. Listen for the accents. So that's the lick. Couple of paradiddles. Again, it puts the sticking into a nice little way where we can get over and get to that cross stick or that stick-on-stick in a pretty kind of cool way, and is an easy way to launch into some of those hand-to-foot combinations. So Brian plays this lick on a Joshua Redman album called Compass. It's a really cool record. It's got actually Blade on it and Greg Hutchinson both on drums, Ruben Rogers and Larry Grenadier on bass, and Josh obviously on saxophone. And he kind of combines those 4 rhythm section players in a whole bunch of cool combinations. Sometimes there's 2 drummers and 1 bassist. Sometimes there's 2 bassists, 1 drummer. Sometimes they are all playing on it. It's kind of a cool way to kind of reimagine the whole cordless saxophone trio combination. Lots of really cool stuff on there. The tune that we're taking this lick from is called Round Reuben. Josh has a long history of writing songs for the people in his band. He wrote a great tune for Brian Blade called Switchblade years back. So this one is Round Reuben. It's written for the bassist Ruben Rogers, who I said was already on this record. Ruben's got a lot of solo time in this, but later in the track we get a chance for Blade to blow a little bit, and then that's when he kind of plays this phrase. And what's cool about the phrase is, early on, Brian was, you can tell in his development that he, very steeped in traditional jazz. Philly Joe Jones and a lot of these kind of players you can hear early in his playing. But then, as he kept evolving as an artist, now when we think of Brian Blade, we think of this like ever expansive drummer and musician, plays guitar, has a bunch of great records out, great composer. And it's nice to hear him in a recent context still at times rely on that that foundational bebop phrasing that he had early in his playing. So in this case, he's borrowing a pretty common phrase that kind of developed around the bebop days. This is Philly Joe Jones and Art Taylor and those kind of guys. And it's to take a paradiddle, but to add a little accent in a particular spot. So it's going to go paradiddle, para. And so basically it's right, left, left, right. Those are the accent points for the first 2 paradiddles. I'm just going to cycle that through one time. There's a couple of variations of that, which we'll talk when we get more into the lesson material, but it's 2 paradiddles. Then that 3rd paradiddle, after he comes out of that, he goes in that little stick-on-stick thing or stick shot thing and goes back and forth. And both of these pieces of language, the paradiddle, actually all 3, the paradiddle, the stick-on-stick sound, and basically the hand-to-foot, all those are pretty much built into that kind of like classic bebop drumming thing that we love so much, that is still applicable to this day in lots of different contexts. So what can we glean from this lick? First of all, it lines up with some of the earlier phrases I did in that it starts on 1, ends on 1, allows us to quickly get into the phrase or easily get into the phrase and then easily get out of it. I stopped the lick right on 1, but Brian keeps playing, so he doesn't actually do a break there. I just thought that was a nice, clean place to stop because he does put a little accent right on 1 and then continues to play other stuff. And that's really how we could be using this phrase as well. It also connects to something I'm doing on my site called continuous eighths. We're working on something, these guys sit around for hours and it's like stuff just constantly comes out and all these like sticking combinations, and when it's happening all at once, it's a little hard to tell what's going on. So I kind of am breaking down some of the common sticking patterns the way a saxophonist might break down the common ways to connect bebop phrases and eighth notes. There's some common stuff that makes it easy to string these pieces of language together, and Brian is making use of that by using the paradiddle. So he's got that one paradiddle phrase. We mentioned the accent pattern. There's two versions there. One is where you play an accent on your right, and then when you start the left paradiddle, you accent both the left and the right. But you can also, sometimes you don't accent that left, so the accent only happens, there's only two right accents. That you've heard a ton. If you want a great example of how much language you can get out of this, check out Art Taylor doing it on John Coltrane's Countdown off of Giant Steps. Art Taylor has some time out front to kind of solo, and when it's super duper fast like this is a great phrase to rely on. Often that phrase is done without the last two notes. So think of it as paradiddle 2 and paradiddle 4 and. That's an easy thing to do, and to take a few of those notes out as the tempo increases gives it a little bit of room to breathe. You can obviously see we can move that accent around. So I'm going to break down a whole bunch of different paradiddle combinations that use those accents and voice them around the kit. Also get into, I think one of the other cool parts of the phrase is the third paradiddle, which is right, left, right, right. Then he ends on the left on 3, and then that gives us a cool place to play the 2 stick shots. So 3 and 4 and 1. So I also think that's part of the hipness, and then obviously once you get into the hand to foot combinations, there's endless amounts of stuff you can do there. You can also do it and leave out the hand to foot stuff and just play right into that paradiddle, 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 da da and da. Like that's now basically it's a 2-bar phrase, and then you can go on to language from there. Whole bunch of those things will be broken down. I'm trying to put about somewhere between 12 to 20 different variations of licks and combinations in these PDFs, so you guys have a lot to chew on. And part of that is to help ingrain this idea that you could take one really good phrase and then extrapolate it into all these other variations, and out of that come up with maybe 2 or 3 that are your pieces of language. Like, man, I really like this. And then you're kind of advancing or forwarding or innovating off of pre-existing language, and it's something that you can kind of make your own and not feel like you're playing phrases. When we hear Brian play that, it doesn't sound like he's playing in the 1950s. It sounds like he's playing now because it's a little bit of his own kind of variation on it. So I want to pass that along so you have some of your own variations and we kind of keep this language moving forward. Okay, lots of paradiddle-diddle stuff going on lately. I might do a few more of those so we can have a nice little thread here. If you've already got your hands moving in that direction, we can keep adding on to that. Okay, hope you get a lot out of this. See you on the next one. Good luck.